Hello my lovely friends, welcome back to the channel. I am so happy to see you here again. I hope you guys are doing well and sleeping peacefully at night, because honestly, after today's story, you might not. So, grab your headphones, turn off the lights, and get under your blanket. Because today, we have a story that is going to make you want to check every single corner of your room. It is spicy, it is scary, and it is very, very real. This story comes to us from a girl named Maya. She shared this experience a few years ago, but she says she still gets nightmares about it. It's about the smell of rot, and a discovery that changed everything. Let's not waste any more time. Let's dive in. This story takes place about 3 years ago, when I had just graduated from university. My best friend, Sarah, and I decided to move in together to save money. We were looking for something cheap, because you know how it is when you're just starting out, budget is everything. After weeks of searching, we found this apartment in an older part of the city. It was a ground floor unit in a building that looked like it used to be a factory or a warehouse maybe 50 years ago. The landlord was an old man who barely spoke, but he offered us the place at half the market rent. We should have known then that it was too good to be true. But we were young and excited. The apartment had high ceilings and big windows, but the walls were covered in this old, floral wallpaper that was peeling at the edges. It smelled a little bit like dust and wet wood, but we thought, okay, we can fix this. We'll clean it up, get some air freshener, and it'll be fine. The first week was actually great. We unpacked, we invited friends over, we made the place feel like home. But then, the smell started. At first, it was subtle. It was like when you leave meat out on the counter for too long. That sour, metallic smell. Sarah and I spent an entire weekend scrubbing the floors. We took out the trash, we cleaned the fridge, we even checked the drains. We thought maybe a mouse had died under the sink. But we found nothing. And after we cleaned, the smell would disappear for a few hours, only to come back stronger the next morning. Guys, listen to me. There is nothing worse than a bad smell in your house that you can't find the source of. It drives you crazy. You feel dirty, you feel uncomfortable. And the fact that it smelled like rotting meat? That is a huge red flag. If I smell meat rotting and there is no meat, I am out of there. No questions asked. But Maya and Sarah stayed, and that is where it gets terrifying. Weeks went by, and the smell became unbearable. It wasn't just in one corner anymore, it was everywhere. It was in our clothes, in our hair, in our bedsheets. I remember going to work, and my boss asked me, "Did you step in something?" It was humiliating. We tried everything, candles, industrial cleaners, those gel air fresheners, but nothing worked. It was like the smell was coming from inside the walls. And then, the physical symptoms started. Sarah began complaining about these terrible migraines. She would wake up in the morning, her eyes puffy and red, throwing up for no reason. She was always tired, always sluggish. I started feeling it too. I would get dizzy just standing in the hallway. It felt like there was no oxygen, like the air was too heavy to breathe. We called pest control 3 times. They came with their cameras and their traps, and every time, they told us the same thing, "Ma'am, there are no rodents here. Your pipes are fine. We don't know what you're smelling." It was making us crazy. Sarah and I started snapping at each other over small things. The stress of living in a dirty-feeling environment was breaking us down. But the worst part happened at night. About a month in, I started waking up in the middle of the night. Not because of noise, but because of a sensation. I would feel wetness. Like someone had poured a glass of water on my pillow. I would wake up, touch my face, and my hand would be damp. And the smell would be overwhelming, so strong I could taste it in the back of my throat. I thought I was sweating. I thought I was sick. But then, I noticed the wall. Okay, wait. Wetness on the pillow? That is actually my worst nightmare. I am getting goosebumps just thinking about it. You're sleeping, you're vulnerable, and you wake up wet? And the smell? This isn't just a haunting anymore, this feels like something biological, something alive. Maya, you are braver than I am because I would have been sleeping on my friend's couch after the first night of this. In my bedroom, right next to my bed, there was a dark patch on the old floral wallpaper. At first, I thought it was just a shadow or maybe the glue coming through. But one morning, I noticed it had grown. It was a dark, yellowish-brown color, like old bruises. And it was perfectly round, about the size of a dinner plate. I grabbed a towel and some water to wipe it, thinking maybe it was mold. But as soon as the wet cloth touched the wall, I pulled my hand back in shock. The wall wasn't just damp, it was hot. The wall was hot to the touch, like a fever. And when I pressed my hand against it, the wall gave slightly. It was soft. Spongy. I called the landlord immediately. I told him, there is something growing inside the wall. It's hot, and it's expanding. He came over that afternoon. He was annoyed, huffing and puffing. He looked at the stain, touched it for half a second, and shrugged. It's just an old water leak, he said. These buildings have bad pipes. I'll send a plumber next week. But it's warm, I told him. Feel it. He refused. He just shook his head and left. Sarah and I were alone again. That night, neither of us slept well. The smell was so toxic we had to sleep with the windows open in the middle of winter. Around 3 a.m., I heard it. It was a soft, wet sound. Squelch, squelch. Like someone walking barefoot in mud. It was coming from the wall behind my head. I froze. I was lying on my side, facing the wall. The room was pitch black, but I could sense the stain right there, inches from my face. And then, I felt it. A heartbeat. Thump, thump, thump. It wasn't my heart. It was coming from the wall. No. No, no, no. Did you hear that? A heartbeat coming from the wall? That is not a leak. That is not mold. That is a living, breathing organism living inside her bedroom. I am genuinely terrified right now. If it were me, I would have packed my bags at 1 a.m. and run out of that house in my pajamas. But Maya had to see what it was. The next morning, the stain had doubled in size. It was no longer a circle, it was an oval, and it looked textured. It looked like layers of raw meat. Sarah was at work, and I was home alone. The curiosity mixed with the fear was driving me insane. I knew the plumber wasn't coming for days. I felt like this thing, whatever it was watching me. I went to the kitchen and grabbed a sharp knife. I don't know what I was planning to do, really. I just needed to know what was behind the paper. I needed to see the source of the smell. I stood in front of the wall in my bedroom. The air was thick, buzzing with flies now. Flies were everywhere. I lifted the knife and, with a shaking hand, I sliced into the wallpaper. The paper peeled away easily, damp and soggy. And behind it, there was no brick. There was no insulation. There was a mass. It was black, glistening, and wet. It looked like a giant tumor attached to the plaster. And it was moving. Rhythmic contractions, expanding and shrinking, like a lung breathing. I leaned in closer, trembling. The smell was so potent I could barely breathe. And as I looked at the center of the mass, I saw something that made me scream. There was a tooth. A human tooth, embedded deep in the black flesh. And next to it, a fragment of blue fabric. The same blue dress I had worn on the day we moved in. Suddenly, the wall let out a sound, a low, gurgling hiss, like air escaping a lung. And the mass, it began to swell. I backed away, terrified. The black flesh started to pulse violently. The smell of rotting meat filled the entire room instantly. I realized then that this thing wasn't just growing there. It was feeding. It had been eating the organic matter around it, maybe even droppings from the pest control, maybe old trash, and now, it wanted more. I dropped the knife, ran to the front door, grabbed my phone, and didn't even put on my shoes. I called Sarah and screamed, "Don't come home. Get out. Get out now." We met at a coffee shop 2 blocks away. We were shaking, crying, barely able to speak. We never went back for our furniture. We never went back for our clothes. We called the landlord from the coffee shop, told him the apartment was destroyed, and we blocked his number. We lost our deposit, we lost our stuff, but we got our lives back. I am shaking. Literally shaking. That is the most horrifying thing I have ever heard. The fact that it had her dress fabric in it. It implies the thing was aware, or at least it was consuming everything around it. I am so glad you and Sarah got out when you did. Honestly, if you had stayed another night, I don't even want to think about what would have happened. That apartment wasn't haunted by a ghost. It was infected. And you can't fight something like that with a vacuum cleaner. This story is a reminder that sometimes, the scariest things aren't spirits from the other side. Sometimes, nature creates something that we just can't explain. Guys, if you ever move into a new place and it smells like rotting meat, don't scrub the floor. Just run. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. I hope you enjoyed the video, even though I probably scared you half to death. If you did, please smash that like button and subscribe to the channel. It helps me so much. Also, let me know in the comments, have you ever lived in a place that just felt wrong? Or maybe you smelled something you couldn't explain. I want to hear all about it. Anyways, that's all for today. Make sure to subscribe to Y channel if you like the content and email me your stories at samshorror@gmail.com and email me for any paid promotions. Stay safe, stay happy, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.